Howdy, it's Matt, and you're on board with the ZOHD Drift. Now I'm coming into land, and Josh may catch it in a moment for us. However, take a look at this summary screen at the end. Yes, that is, or has been, over 1 hour in the sky for just 2,270 milliamperes. So that's what this video is about. It's about the ZOHD Drift and the modifications which I've been made to it so that we can keep it in the sky for an extended period of time, which I can tell you is absolutely fantastic. Howdy, I'm Matt, and in this episode is going to be an overview to the ZOHD Drift, a couple of weeks on since it's been and arrived. So those of you which will remember the unboxing and then the maiden, you could tell from the very beginning it was pretty much everything which we expected it to be. A very quick to build, very light and nimble model in the sky, and it had a glide for days. Now, originally, I did say that, and those of you which will remember the situation, is that I only had a couple of hours to get iNav in here to get it to the flight line for the following Sunday, and that was like a fortnight or so ago. And of course I took it there, absolutely so impressed with it, and since then I have had so many flights. Now one flight stands out in particular, which was this Sunday. 62 minutes this model was in the sky for. 62 minutes, just put that into perspective. Oh, let me put this into perspective. It was in the sky for 62 minutes. It's got a 3,500 milliampere 2S Lion pack in there, and it only used 2,270 milliamperes. So we probably, add another half hour, 20 minutes in the sky on top? And that's the reason for this video, because I'd like to give you an overview from back to front of the model, because there have been some big changes. And all those, also do want to stress, those of you looking for the iNav config file, there's a link to that, or there is a link to that in the video description for you as well. So let me just start at the very beginning. This is the plug and play kit. So that came with the motor. There's an ESC in the top of here, and the servos were fitted. Also, for 100% clarity, this model was bought out of my own money for my own abuses. This was not a freebie for review. I bought this because I wanted it and I really like the look of it, and as you can tell by my excitement, I genuinely really do like it, and 62 minutes in the sky is absolutely just insane. Right, let's start at the back. Okay, one thing to note with the elevator is that I am using the second hole in for the control horn, so I don't want to spoil the thunder too much, and I'll cover that bit of my hand. But just be aware, I am using the second servo hole out, okay, because I did find this model to be very pitch sensitive. Those of you will remember that in the maiden, and the center of gravity is slightly incorrect. It's at least 3 millimeters in front of their CG marks underneath the wing, okay, so on the CG, very wild, 3 millimeters in front, much, much tamer. Now, coming back, starting at the rear of the model, you'll notice that there is a little bit of shiny laminate, okay, around the horizontal fin, and also up underneath the rear part of this, the vertical fin, and that's just purely to A, add extra rigidity, and B, also to keep those surfaces clean. Now, I do have a separate video on how to laminate. Those of you worried about how much weight that is added, that is the laminate which I'm using. It is stupidly thin, okay, and I won't go into any more details than that, other than just go and look at the laminating video which I've already been and created. On the topic of laminate, I have laminated a good 60 to 70 millimeters of the leading edge, and of course the wingtips as well. I did find that the wingtips were very, very flaky, as in they were just too thin, so putting a layer of laminate on top of them, you'll probably see it a little bit better on this side. You'll see that I've done it from there outwards, and of course this leading edge too has made them an awful lot more stiffer, and of course it will keep them cleaner for longer. Also, one thing to note, and I've now seen it with other people mention this as well, that the main spars do come unglued, so the second your model turns up, check that these spars are actually glued in, and remember you also have them on the bottom. It was the right wing on mine which came unglued. Very, very simple to fix, and again, another reason why to put some laminate on top, because if it did ever come unstuck again, is the laminate will add extra rigidity to your model for you. Now, I did go on and do this scheme now, just to show off, to be perfectly honest. I also own the Dart 250G, so if you haven't seen the video on that one, I have taken the design which I saw in a Facebook group, somebody done that orange on their wing. I have done that to my 250G as well, which looks absolutely fantastic. So let me get that one back out the way. If you are interested in the 250G, I also bought that one out of my own money, and I'm also very impressed with that one. And of course, I've got the config and setup files for you as well, because that one is quite different to this one, although they are very, very similar weights. Right, getting ourselves back onto the topic. So I have put some laminate on the leading edges, and also I have been to put some laminate on the front half of the fuselage and up around the nose, again just to keep the model clean. I am using the 2-blade prop which was included. I think that's a 5x5 propeller. I am genuinely impressed with the plug-and-play kit, both the servos, the ESC and the motor. I would personally suggest that's what you go for, especially if you want something which is light and is just going to be an all-round good fun model. Okay, and I did that both with this model and also that Dart 250G, exactly the same setup, and I think it's a very good powertrain setup. So I know that you could potentially overpower this one, especially the 250G, but I think realistically it was worth paying a little bit of extra money and going for the plug-and-play kit. Now, if you do go for the FPV kit, you will get the ZOHD, V6400 piggyback camera. Apparently it's a bit crap, okay? So, and I haven't tested that, but the general feedback is that it's not particularly great. However, it's great if it's included in the kit, and it means you can go to the flight line the same day, because setting this stuff up is child's play. Also in the FPV kit, you do get the co-pilot system, so those of you who are looking for stabilize mode and return to home, then this works an absolute treat and is absolute child's play to go and set up. That's not something which I'm going to be showing here. I will have a quick overview to the co-pilot system, and this model has the holes for it. It's just 4 screws and off you go. This co-pilot is actually going to a friend. They're going to set it up, and they're not, what should we say, not necessarily iNav savvy, okay? So this makes a fantastic, simple solution for them to have stabilized mode and return to home as well, okay? So what I'm basically saying is that go for the kit if you're on an absolute budget, but actually I think you probably should go for the plug-and-play kit. But if you want a little bit extra and you just want to get going like the same day, because this is like a 10-minute build just to click the wings in and off you go. The electronics is the bit which will take longer. If you do go for the FPV kit, you do get some extra goodies, and it could be potentially worth it for you. Obviously, you pay more for that. Right, moving our ways forwards. Okay, now you'll notice that there is not necessarily, let's ignore the iNav for a moment, is that you'll notice there is a chunk of dirty sellotape there. The one thing which I really don't like about this model, and it's the only one thing, is this wing joiner system. Now, if I untake that for a moment off there, okay, like so, very, very simple to build. Okay, so let me just unscrew this on there. It's literally just 2 thumb screws and a servo connector. The wings pop off, so this will fit in a backpack super, super easily. As you can see there, it's just a fuse, and the other side comes off just as easy. However, this rear connector, as it goes into here, is really, really flimsy, and you can see how much slop I've got on my model, and I have categorically not landed this model. That is how it was from the moment it turned up here. There was just slop in that back section. However, that is the only one thing which I can minor gripe about, and maybe an area for improvement for ZOHD later on. But it is simply remedied with just a piece of sellotape, and job is fixed. Right, let's move on to iNav. You will notice this honking great big GPS unit on there. Now, of course, you could use a smaller size GPS, and I'm here looking for an example. There we go. Something like this would, of course, work. The NZ GPS, maybe a BN. I wouldn't suggest the BN 180, maybe a 220 or an 880 unit. I'll put links to those, and by the way, I'll put links to everything which I've got in mine, and maybe some alternatives for you as well down in the video description too. I've gone for that GPS puck because I was having GPS issues where I fly. The second I changed it to, and you'll see, I don't know if you can, is it even on my desk? No, it's not on my desk anymore. I've got a tiny little, basically the size of that GPS unit in there, okay, is half, literally physically half the size of that. That one is double the size, and I have not had a single GPS issue since, okay, so that's just, it's added a few extra grams, but for me it's been worth it. And of course I've laminated on top as well. Why don't we zoom in and we'll take a closer look. There we go. Alright, so I've got that wired in. Now up, I don't know how well I'm going to be able to do this. Okay, in this section I'll point them out with a pen. I have the ESC which I've mounted up on the top. Massive tip for you, when yours arrives, make sure you calibrate your ESC. Also, you'll want to set the brake for the propeller on the back as well. Now, that is in the first menu, and you need to let it beep 4 times. Now, rather than me going any further than that on how to calibrate it and how to set the brake, Andrew Newton in the top right-hand corner, and down in the video description, has made a video on how to do that, and he'll talk you through it. Now, you will notice that there's some foil in there. The foil is around a TBS micro V2 receiver, which you'll see the antenna poking out here on the back. Now originally I did have it horizontally like that, and I had terrible issues with reception. The moment I took it out the side, like so, and I've just melted a hole in there into the fuselage, that's massively improved the reception, okay, on the transmitter. Staying on the top of the model, and I can see the light's gone a bit wonky, so let's zoom out a little bit. Always the wrong way with the zoom. Is that that is categorically not a Maytech 1.2 VTX on there. I get loads of questions, or I have had loads of questions about the dipole which I'm using. That came free on some transmitters which I bought from Zone, and somebody called it a VRX antenna. That is all I know about that antenna, but what I also know is that it does potentially work very, very well. And you'll see that I've set that up so we've got maximum cooling on the top, okay, and you'll see that I'm just using a little bit of tape underneath to secure it in there because it's not going to fall out, in short. Now up here with the battery, this is a custom made Li-ion battery pack which I've made with LG MJ1 3500 milliampere Li-ion batteries, 18650s. Very, very simple to make. I've made other videos on how to make these, and that is how I'm able, and that's 2S, and that's how I'm able to get 3500 milliamperes and over an hour in the sky. Up in the nose, I have such a fantastic camera, and literally I was just chatting on the Facebook, in the iNav Facebook group this morning with Mark, and that is the Kadiak's Ratel Starlight. Now it's a 2.1mm lens, and it's without the ND filter. It cost about 20 something quid. Absolutely brilliant. It was so, put it this way, it was so dark here I could have walked into one of the cars like 2 meters away from me. It was that dark. And the second I put the goggles down, you could walk around like it's daylight out there. It's obviously it's not a what you call it, a Runcam night owl or night eagle, whatever it is. And those I've got one here, and I've got 2 here actually. They cost me like 80 to 100 quid. Obviously, it's not that kind of level, but for 25 quid, genuinely really, really impressed. So let's get that back and stack that up its nose and get that lid back down as well. Right, go on, here we go. You'll notice that I'm also using XT30 plugs, and that's purely down to weight, and that's not working out very well, so let's get that back out. Come on, Bubba, in you go. There we go. Right, next bit is the underside of the model. Now, have you spotted my little addition just yet? This is something which I've done both here on the Drift and also the Dart 250G. Now, I just want to make the point again, okay, is that, grab one of those, it'll probably be the wrong one. I own 3 of these cameras. These are the Foxeer Razor Nano, let me get this right. Yeah, the Foxeer Razor Nano FPV camera. Bought 3 of these out of my own money. I bought 1, really impressed with it. Then I went on and bought 2 more. They are 13 quid each, something like that. Absolute bargain. And remember, I'll put links to the right items in the video description for you. We were talking about rear view cameras. I have also done exactly the same on the bottom of the Dart 250G as well. You'll see the rear facing camera. That is how small that camera is. It's absolutely tiny. And of course, that's exactly what you need on a tiny little model like that Dart 250G. Or the Drift as well. And I've set it in the rear so that I can do on a camera switcher within the Maytech flight controller which I've got in there, because it's all built in. It should literally just plug it in and it's done, and one mode switch to swap it over. So yes, I have put in a rear facing camera in there, and I go out and fly that later today. Now, what I did say in my original video for the Drift is that it would be nigh on impossible to fit one of the Maytech F411 WSE flight controllers in here, and I'm happy to say that I was very quickly proven wrong by a number of people, which is absolutely fantastic. Excuse me, it is absolutely possible. And that's what we've been and got in here, which is the Maytech F411 flight controller. You'll notice there's a collection of wires here. I haven't soldered to the board. The idea is that potentially I might want to take that board back out later and put it into another model. Now, the big benefit of the Maytech F411 WSC flight controller is that it's also got a current sensor. So my previous setup with a tiny little flight controller like, it wasn't this one exactly, but very similar to that, which is a 20 by 20. That's actually the Knox V1 one. That was my original flight controller, which I was using, a very similar size board, and that worked out really, really well. However, I decided that I wanted to see the current set in and work out how much more flight time I've got, and that's why I went for the Maytech board. Absolutely impressed with that Maytech board, has worked out really, really well. Now, a little note in here is that not only with the plywood board on the bottom, I put some double-sided tape on the plywood. You'll see the shininess just there. Can you see that double-sided, that shininess just there? That is double-sided tape which I've put on the plywood. Then on the bottom of the board, I got some double-sided foam tape. Let me just show you that. So I'm sure you've come across or seen this stuff before, double-sided foam tape, and then I put that on the bottom of the flight controller, and the reason why I did that was so that it just calms it down and it adds a little bit of softness to the flight controller, okay? Now, matte being matte is that I also put some double-sided tape on the bottom of the flight controller board, because this stuff, this double-sided foam tape, didn't stick particularly well to the bottom of the flight controller. So I put some double-sided tape on the bottom of the Maytech board, and that made an absolutely beautiful sandwich, and that's not likely to fall out anytime soon. Now, you may notice, or may have noticed just a few moments ago, if we can get the contrast right, there. Okay, I have had to melt a little bit of this bottom hatch, and I think I still need a little bit more just to really home that in, because I do want the flight controller board pressed down. That's always something which you want. You always want to make sure your flight controller board stays still. However, I do have a little bit of a gap along the seam, so I've got a little bit of work left there to do to get that in there nice and tightly. Now, I did mention this model has been and got me 62 minutes in the sky. We were literally there on Sunday on the flight line. Got the laptop out, connected it up, got some Wi-Fi off the phone, and then I just set in this waypoint mission, and it was absolutely fantastic, this model. And I may have included some DVR footage of this model flying around, okay? Now, I just want to stress, this model is not fast, okay? It's also not meant for aerobatics. However, it will mop up wind, okay? Even in less than ideal wind conditions, it will fly around. I think the heaviest wind I've flown it around is about 20-25 miles an hour, and it was fine going into wind, it was fine going with the wind. It was just when you were going across the wind, it really did not like it, and that's perfectly acceptable for a model which basically weighs sweet FA. Okay, so we need to put things into perspective. This model, on that 62-minute flight, it just pottered its way out. And remember, the full config settings are down in the video description for you. Oh, right, quick word of disclaimer. In my config settings, I have disabled the ability, I have no restriction on where the first waypoint gets set. So if I loaded up a waypoint mission for when we go and fly at the farm, but here or a different flying site, it would go fly to the farm and then go and do the waypoint mission, because I've disabled that. So make sure, in fact, I've removed that from the settings from you. Okay, if you want to do something like that, you can look up, I'll put a note to that in the video description for you. Okay, so just go through the settings and make sure you understand them. Don't blindly copy and paste them, because there are implications to each of the settings. Okay, but they will get you pretty damn close. So anyway, just getting back to my point, it just went off and it was fantastic. Now, I had one of these flat, it was just so cool, because me and Andy were just there chatting away on the flight line, and I got some, I don't really like flat screens, but because we were in the sky so long, I got some eSheen EV800D goggles, and you can take them off and you can just use the screen. That was ultra cool. I'll probably include a little clip. Absolutely fantastic, just to watch the model just wander around. And of course, remember, this is a very light model, and it's a very quiet model. So the moment you get any form of height on, it just disappears into the sky. It genuinely just disappears. You can't see it, you can't hear it. Sometimes we know where it is in the sky, but you can't see it, and you know exactly where it is in the sky. That's how covert this model can be. Now, let me just put this into perspective, okay? The drift is about the journey, okay? I'll put that into perspective. The drift is about the journey. It's about enjoying the FPV experience and the jolly to go and get to the destination wherever you're going, okay? Which could just be flying around in one great big circle. Put that into perspective to the Dart 250G. This one is about getting there. Okay, so this one is about 5 times as fast. This one does about 30 miles an hour, 25 to 30 miles an hour in a straight line. Okay, you do need to keep the pace up on that one. And that one's about getting there. Okay, so the Dart 250G is about getting there, and that's why I've got both of them on. And after Sunday, I really like the Dart 250G. I've got a separate video on that. But they are two very different styles of model. The Drift is about the journey to get there, and the 250G is about getting there. Does that make any logical sense to you? That's how I see it in my head. So there you go, that is the Dart, no, it's not the Dart, is it, Matty? That is the ZOHD Drift. One minor complaint about the wing joiner, which was very simply resolved with a piece of sellotape. The only one improvement which I'd like to see, well, other than that, to the model, is that I would like to see a bigger version, a much bigger version. Give us something twice the size. Not particularly worried about portability. I'd just like to see something twice the size, because this little mini version flies so sweet, and I think it's something which could be scaled up into a larger version. Now, like I said, I'll put the config for my iNav for the Maytech F411 flight controller in the video description for you. You'll also want to look out for the current sensor as well. That has what's worked out for my board, but remember, those settings do change from one board to another as well. If you have any questions or comments about this model, please just ask in the comments section underneath this video. Remember, this model was bought out of my own money, and I am using it for my own abuses as well. It was definitely not a freebie. I wish... Well, no, I don't wish it was, to be perfectly honest. It's just, I just like the model a lot. Everything which I've used in this model, I will put links to those in the video description for you. And for 100% clarity, those will be affiliate links. So if you use those links, you will be supporting this channel. Remember, that's something which I like to be 100% clear about. And on that note, Drift. Do I like it? I like it a lot. Flies so well. iNav just took it. So line of sight, it was really nice. iNav took it to a whole new level. Combine that with Lions, the rear, and again, the only thing which I could think about improving this model was putting some laminate on the wingtip to make it look nice, and beyond iNav and FPV was putting that rear-facing camera in the bottom, which cost me 13 quid and maybe 10 minutes just to put some little connector wires on the end, and then literally I just plugged it into the iNav and then changed one switch setting within the modes so I could switch to it. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. In fact, look out for a later video for us flying around, maybe having a little bit of a chit chat and also flicking in between the rear camera and back again. So yeah, like the Drift a lot. Questions or comments? Let me know in the video description below. On that note, for myself, Matt, a big thank you to you for joining me here at the workbench. Remember, if you are new here, I'm Matt. Welcome aboard. Don't forget to press the red subscribe button underneath this video, and of course hit the bell notification so that YouTube notifies you when the next video is out, because it could be about a jolly with the ZOHD Drift, it could be the Dart 250G, it could be the iNav boat, which I need to work on here this afternoon, hence why the laptop's out, and you may have spotted some little propellers here as well, because I need to get that sorted today. Anyway, point being, big thank you to you for taking the time to join me here today. I genuinely do appreciate that. So with that said, for myself, Matt, cheerios!